Welcome to Pieces for My Puzzle. I'm your host, Nikki Ship, and I'm excited to be sharing with you my life with a son on the spectrum. This podcast is for anyone who is looking for quick tips and perspective, but most of all, for hope and inspiration. So sit back, relax, and let's put the pieces together. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Pieces for My Puzzle. I'm your host, Nikki Ship. Thank you so much for joining us today. Last week, I had the great pleasure of speaking with Mr. Jason Dietrich from an organization called SSAI. If you didn't get a chance to tune into that episode, please do. We had a wonderful conversation about STEM education and ways that you can connect with your special needs kiddo through STEM education. So thank you again, Jason, for that conversation. I had a great time. This week, I am so unbelievably excited to have Miss Kristina Lucia Pezza on the show today. Kristina is the founder of Curiously Created Creations, a heartfelt brand dedicated to helping parents and children foster better communication and connection. Through her crochet toys, books, and creative tools, Kristina aims to provide families with meaningful ways to engage, all while addressing the complexities of emotions and challenges faced in parenting. Inspired by her personal experiences growing up in a family affected by autism and her personal passion for storytelling, she's on a mission to build a platform where play, patience, and understanding create lasting bonds. Thank you so much. Please welcome Kristina to the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited. I've been so excited to talk about your books and all the things that you're doing. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's really an honor to be here.
Thank you. I just kind of want to jump right in for our listeners that are listening today. Why don't you share a little bit about your personal story with us?
Absolutely. So I grew up in what you call a dysfunctional family. And a dysfunctional family meaning that there wasn't any proper form of communication.
Okay.
And there wasn't a talking about feelings. And a lot of times in these dynamics, you have what you call a scapegoat. And I was always a scapegoat. I was always the problem child. And it wasn't until my adulthood when I had what we call a bottom moment with my mom in particular. And it got me into therapy. And one of the first things my therapist did in my first session was hand me the feelings list. And I had no idea how to respond. Like I was so used to I'm fine, I'm bad, I know I'm always wrong. And it was when I started working through those feelings and really working through those traumas, I realized that because there was such a lack of communication and such a lack of awareness of the inner child and the critical parent from my caregivers and beyond, that they were blaming things on me. And if they weren't blaming things on me, other people were mimicking their behaviors at me. So it's just this huge cycle of abuse. And there were deeper things there. I did have a parent that suffered from narcissism and anxiety. My other parent is on this, I'm another parent on the spectrum. And that also, because neither party handled their inner demons, handled their communication patterns, it got blamed on me. A lot of things got blamed on me, and a lot of things were demanded of me that I wasn't emotionally ready for as a child.
Or didn't even understand, I'm sure. Yeah, couldn't even conceptualize that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's when I'm in meetings, like adult children of alcoholics, ACA meetings, when I read the book, and when I first started going to those meetings, and I read, I forgot the name of the book, I'm going to draw a blank on it. Basically, it's adult children of alcoholics, and you go one or the other. You're either a procrastinator or overachiever, and I think we're already preset. And traumas and abuse intensify what's already there for us. So I was already an overachiever, so all the abuse intensified my overachieverness. So that was like something else that I need to dial
Yeah.
back and get in
Yeah.
tune with and like whatnot. So yeah, and it's from my healing journey that I realized how important communication is and how
Yes.
important feelings are, not just for
Hmm.
ourselves, but for others. And that really gave me solidity. So when I discovered I was a writer, I was like, this is bigger than me.
Hmm.
It's one thing to heal myself, and you can't fix people,
Right.
but you can create tools for people to have the choice to grow from those tools. And so that's really how this journey of healing turned into something bigger than me.
Yeah, and I can't wait to, I know we're going to delve into some of your creative works here soon and I'm so excited about it, but I think it's a beautiful story that you have about something that, childhood trauma is very, very real. And, and I always tell people that I say it jokingly, but I remember very vividly when they handed me this tiny little baby. I remember thinking to myself, God, please don't let me screw up this kid, but I mean, we don't realize that we bring in a lot of our predispositions, our beliefs, our behaviors, all of that we bring into play when we become parents. And we don't realize that we bring all of that with us. And so, I think it's great that you identified that there was trauma for you at a young age, and to identify something amazingly beautiful that was able to come out of this through your healing journey, because I don't think everybody always goes that route. I think in like you said, it has to be a choice. We can only present those tools and resources, and what they choose to do with them it's entirely up to them, right?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the birth of Bella, which is one of your characters. I love Bella, Bella the elephant. I love Bella Elephant. I know she's central to your books and your toys. So what inspired her character, and what role does she play in helping parents and children to connect?
So it's ironic. So this is also another big piece of my healing journey. Originally, I started creating all these stuffed characters, crocheting
Mm-hmm.
them, and ever gravitating towards the elephants. And
Mm-hmm.
originally, I was naming them after people in my life, just like as a little honor. Because the other piece of my healing journey that I realized is because of the consistent abuse, I became a people pleaser because I developed this story, I'm bad, I
Right.
need to please people. So Bella's actually been my nickname for a very, very long time. But when I named the elephant, I thought, oh, I'll name and honor my friend's little girl. And when I
Mm-hmm.
wrote my first Bella story, it was one of 10 stories I wrote that week. I realized I was writing about myself and my mom.
Mm.
And I realized that my friend's little girl wasn't guiding me to a name. She was guiding me to my own inner child and my own,
Oh,
no,
wow.
this is your nickname. People call you Bella. And my mom was the more dominant personality
Mm-hmm.
in the parentship, in the parent relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
I also felt like it was a second chance for my mom. My mom unfortunately passed away in 2019, a year before officially discovered I was a writer. And I feel like it's this beautiful moment for me to showcase the beauty that she was striving to bring to my
Right.
childhood.
Right.
And that was really important. And in light of what you said too, how she helps parents and children. So
Yes.
that's like the beauty of writing, and also the beauty in your inner child and critical parent. Because when you're creating, you want to give your audience a piece of you, but you
Mm-hmm.
also want to give them something. You want them to meet you halfway. So it's like this nice scale of balance. And so I purposely chose skills and transitions that we all go through
Yes.
so that people are able to relate and adapt it to
Mm-hmm.
their families, because every family is different. Every family
Yes.
is unique. And I, none of us, even regardless of where we are in our lives, I mean, none of us can really stand on the soapbox and say, I know what you should do. Like, no, we
Yeah.
don't. And
Yeah.
the more we give people space
Mm-hmm.
to come to the table and to get
Yes.
comfortable and not, like the better things are, the better the communication flows. And in the back of each of my books in light of this, because I could easily see too, because some of my books, like for example, I always go to Italy and Paris. So that's why Bella goes
I
to Italy and
know. I'm
Paris.
like, I
I love
have
to go
it.
to Italy for
I was
Paris.
yeah.
I love it.
I'm like, I have that one.
That's why I mentioned it. Yeah, but
Yeah.
the irony too is I'm not a gardener, but my family, I'm from a lineage of gardeners, really,
Oh, that's so
people that
funny.
relatives do great work. But I was able, but that's why activities beyond the book came so keen
Yes, and I
because
noticed that
I,
in the back of the book. Like there's activities in the back of every book of things that you can do to further connect with your child, which I absolutely
yes.
loved. Yes, yes. I noticed that. I loved that. So yeah, so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I had to tell you that was one of my favorite aspects of your books was, okay, how do you put this into play? Like you gave actionable steps after the story of what kids can do or families can do to connect with their kids. And I love that.
Oh, thank you so much. And that's really what they're for. They're really about
Yep.
action steps because my dance instructor actually said this really beautifully. It's so easy to criticize,
Yes. Oh,
and
yeah.
that criticism doesn't help us.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that in my own journey, especially when people hear I'm a writer, they hear I'm an artist. Like
Mm-hmm.
when they ask me, what do I do? What do I do? I always start by asking them questions. Well, where do you want to go with this? Where are you in your process? And that's really the idea of activities beyond the book. Because a mission of communication and feelings, it's a big mission, and it's
Yeah.
a very complex mission because your version of communication is different from mine. And the way I'm communicating with you right now may be different than how we communicated this winter when we first met on
Right.
Zoom,
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
always evolving. So for me
Mm-hmm.
to say, this is the way you should do it every single time, that's not fair. Because
Right.
even I'm doing things differently without knowing it. And so I really wanted that. And another big thing too, which is I could share too as examples. So one of my books, Bella bakes a cake, and Bella
Mm-hmm.
also does Christmas cookies and whatnot. Now I'm a huge baker. I love my kitchen. I love to cook. I love to bake. And as women, I'm not saying for men, there is for men too, but I think as a female, I do see this pressure of like, you have to bake, you have to do this, you have to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, no, you don't. If
Mm-hmm.
you don't like it, you don't like it. Like no one
Yeah.
has to do,
It's okay.
no one exactly. And so that's where also activities beyond the book comes in for especially for books like that. Cause I don't ever want people to feel like, oh gosh, like how do I do this with my child? And
Right.
one of my biggest jokes that I have, because I'm not a do-it-yourself person. Yes, I'm a creative. Yes, I'm an artist. Yes, I'm a baker and all that. But there are certain things where I hire help. And one of my biggest
Yeah.
jokes, my nephew is 4.5 right now. My niece is about to be 1. I don't put together toys, and I have no shame in that. My nephew hands me a box. I'm like, oh baby, you got the wrong girl. I will make you raviolis till the cows come home, homemade, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But sorry, after my cooking set, I'm sitting with my glass of wine and enjoying myself. Like
Yeah.
I'm not,
Not putting together
but
toys. Yeah.
yeah, but I feel like when we're able to have that space to say, hey, this is my strength.
Yeah.
This is not my thing. It allows us to connect further with
Yes.
those around us. Because one of our family friends, for example, he's amazing at putting together toys. He carries around tools in his pocket. So it's his moment to shine. You know what I mean? So
That's his.
that's
Yeah.
also where us giving each other that space like also grows too. But yeah, that's my biggest joke. I'm like, I don't put together toys. Like I'm not an engineer. Like,
Yeah,
that's,
and I
that's what
think
we do.
just the transparency of that, like just being honest and true to who you are and what your preferences are. I think that's I think sometimes we mask that in front of other people or we don't want to say it because we're worried that it might hurt their feelings or, but it doesn't mean we can't be kind about it and still explain where our preferences are or what we like to do or don't do. And so I
Absolutely.
think you bring up such a wonderful point because I joke around about certain things like that too. I'm like, oh no, I'm not your person. I'm not doing that. And then there's sometimes where I'm like, I want to be first in line to be able to do something. It just depends on what it is. So that makes perfect sense. And I think in relation to my son Drayson, the same thing. I try to see what his preferences are and let him cultivate that. So I expose him to things because I want him to try to see if that's something he might like, and if he doesn't, that's okay. We're on to the next thing. It's kind of trial and error, which such is life. you know,
It's so true.
you really emphasize patience is one of the most important tools in parenting. And at least I felt that by reading some of the books. And so can you elaborate on why this is essential and how maybe parents can practice that daily? Because I know For me, I get siloed in the daily grind of things, right? And it's not that I'm being impatient. It's just I'm not exhibiting patience, if that makes sense.
Right. Right. No, I always I do put that in my books because it's so easy for us to forget how hard it is to tie a shoe, how
Yes.
hard it is to zip a jacket, how
Yes.
hard it is to learn a new skill. And this is also where on a personal level, where I'm always working on my patience because as an artist, I'm always learning. As a dancer, I'm always learning. So
Mm-hmm.
when I watched my nephew put on his rain boots for the first time and saw that proud moment, like it really made sense because like I get it. Because like sometimes I leave my dance lessons and I'm in tears because like I can't get this this muscle in my back just won't work the way I want it, or I can't
Right.
feel things. Um,
Yeah.
I but then I see sometimes when I'm around my peers, I see that lack of patience and I see those frustrations come out. And so with my books, I wanted to demonstrate that
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to demonstrate that giving not only our children but also our peers that space to really listen to the why it's frustrating, why they're
Right.
scared, and then relating as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
relating as a human, like, oh, I understand. Okay, I'm going to give you space.
Mm-hmm.
And the other piece of this too, in light of what you said, is how parents can have that space to and work on, not necessarily work on that patience, but like develop it or
Mm-hmm.
cultivate it, is giving themselves a break.
Yeah.
I know what I'm saying. It's so much easier said than done. And I always feel awkward saying this because I know it's a lot easier. Um, but part of the reason why I do say this is because in the family dynamic I was grown up in, my mom survived on control. She had to be control of everyone and everything. And because of that,
Mm-hmm.
she never asked for help.
Yep.
And because she never asked for help, I always had to help. I was always being pushed into the help role without realizing it. And I
Mm-hmm.
was always taking the grunt of her frustrations and her anxiety and sometimes anger. And
Mm-hmm.
if she asked for help or took some time for herself, like at that 5 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
how different would things be?
Yeah.
Because in all fairness, like of course she was frustrated because she was raising 3 kids and whatnot, but then she also made that choice not to ask my dad for help, not to ask my grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
not to financially. I think my parents may have been able to hire a babysitter, helper, or whatnot, but I was always the one babysitting. So that's why I say it's so important to take that break. And by break, I mean maybe it's 5 minutes of journaling, maybe it's an independent play activity with the child. Like I always promote coloring and I'm always creating coloring drawings, which
Mm-hmm.
I have that gift for your audience too.
Oh, I
Because
love it.
even if you're like, wait, Christina, like how am I supposed to leave the room with my kids? How am I supposed to leave my kids in the
Yeah.
other room? Even sitting down coloring with them quietly, low stimulation activities, that allows us to calm
Mm-hmm.
as well
Yeah.
as them to calm down
Yeah.
and connect. And again, I realize this is easier said than done. And something that I've been seeing, because I've been doing Monday thoughts on my Instagram, and I always say in my caption, baby steps are the best steps,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not an overnight, great, I'm going to take an hour to myself, or once a month, I'm going to have a day just for me. Like it doesn't work like that. It
No, it
comes in
does.
like small, like I'm being realistic. Like I know it's
Yeah.
not an overnight process. Like I was just able to set a boundary for myself. It took me a good decade to be able to
Mm-hmm.
set a boundary. So like I get it. It's a
Mm-hmm.
lot easier said than done, but
Yes.
even if it's 5 minutes of journaling,
Oh, did we lose her, Belle? Uh-oh.
or if it,
There we
oh,
go.
I think we're
There we
back.
go. Yeah, it's okay. Sorry, it cut out
or
just for a second. It's okay. Bill, we might just need to edit that. Do you want me to clap?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yay. It spikes on the sound, so he knows where to put the edit in. So that's why I was like, okay, do you want me to clap?
Gotcha.
Like Bill, right here. Okay. Sorry. Okay, sorry. Go ahead and we'll just go ahead and finish the second half of that, what you were answering, and then we'll go to next question. He's just going to edit that part because it cut out just for a
Sure.
second. So okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. No worries, no worries, no worries. No, it's but taking those 5 minutes for ourselves, like, and
Mm-hmm.
gradually, even if it's something that's low stimulation for both us and the child,
Yeah.
it gives us that place of calm.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize it's easier said than done, but if it just starts in small increments, or
Yeah.
maybe if it starts every other day, and again, you know what's right for you and your child, you know what's right for you and your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And, it does take time. And Brene Brown actually said something really powerful, which I I hope, like, I'm always trying to emulate in myself and also in my
Mm-hmm.
relationships, is she and her husband have a kindness plan.
Oh,
And
yes.
there was one, you've heard about this, yeah, and
Yes, I love this. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
amazing. And she said that at this point in life, they both had things with parents going on, and they had their kids and
Mm-hmm.
their marriage and their life. And she said at the end of each day, they would just check in with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if one was below 50, you meet me that bubble, that percentage. If the other person couldn't, they work out a kindness plan. And
Yes.
same thing when I said about taking a break for yourself. These are complex issues. These are not overnight fixes. These are subtle baby steps, trial and error, what works, what doesn't work, because every
Mm-hmm.
family is so unique.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of having the patience with ourselves and the confidence, knowing this is for the better health of our family. This is
Mm-hmm.
for the better health of ourselves, because the reality is, and this is the tricky part about healing, we need to heal ourselves before we can
Yes.
help somebody else.
Yeah.
And because if I told this to my mom, like, she'd be like, Christina, how am I going to do that? I have all of you, and I have your father, and I have this and that, and da da
Yes.
da. And like,
Yeah.
I get it. It's a lot. But,
Right.
if we are willing,
Yes.
that's the first step. If we're willing to take that 5 minutes a day just for ourselves, whatever that looks like, and then gradually over time,
Yeah.
how can we increase it? How can we build it? So that's like how it's baby
Yeah.
steps. It's all about baby
I
steps.
call it forced timeout in my house because I have to force myself to do it. I'm much better about it now, but a decade ago I wasn't, and I was
Yeah.
that person that you're describing where I wouldn't ask for help. I was strategizing his therapies and his care team, and that was the way I was looking at help, but I wasn't asking for help for myself personally. And I think when I started really reaching out to more of my support system, especially some of my great friends, I'm so blessed and lucky that I have such wonderful friends in my life. But my friends and my family, well, what do you need? I'd almost be baffled by that question because I wouldn't think about what I needed. I was just operating in that mode of giving, 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 giving. So when people would say, "What do you
Yeah.
need?" I'd be like, I don't know. Like, because I would
Yeah.
just get so out of touch with my needs and my wants. And so I think that you bring up a really valid point by just starting off with just 5 minutes a day. I mean, there's sometimes where I have no time left, but I'll kick off my shoes and go walk in the grass or in the backyard or do something. Just give me that 5-10 minutes and I'm okay. So but that took a long time for me to get to that point. So I love that you're encouraging families and parents to do that now because that's something that I wish I would have done sooner. But I wouldn't have learned the lessons that I've learned either had I not been down that path, right? But
Yeah.
so I'm embracing that part. But I'm just saying it's hard sometimes. And there's some days at the end of the day I'm like, I have to ask myself, did I take those few minutes for myself today? You know? And it's almost like a little settlement with me. If I didn't, I'm like, all right, I'm okay. I'm not going to take 5 tomorrow. I'm going to take 10. That's how
Yeah.
I try to look at it to make sure that I'm still getting that time in. And it could be just sitting with Drayson in the same room, coloring. Sometimes I'll just read a book while he's still in the room. I
Yeah.
do lots of other activities and things like that, even when he's in the room because, I can't leave him. Same thing.
Right.
But you just
Right.
got to kind of make the best of it with what you got, right? But you're right; it means so much, and I think that it's important to recognize that we do not give ourselves enough time or recognition as parents, and I say that all the
Right.
time. We just don't, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And I witnessed that with my own mother. And I wish she gave herself more time. I
Mm-hmm.
wish she did that for herself. And I also realize there are deeper reasons why. she made the choices she did. And that's also where, as her daughter, I struggle because that's the other part of the healing journey is respecting the other person's choices. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's to each his own, but it is encouraging having
Yeah.
these conversations and knowing there are people and hearing you say that 5 minutes in the grass. I'm like, oh, that sounds heavenly.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
5 minutes just to connect and just be like, oh, breathe
Yeah.
and just love nature and just
And
be in
just
the
try to get outside.
moment.
Well, and and I'm trying to take advantage of the nice weather here while I can, because here in Arizona it's going to be tipping 100 here pretty soon. So it's like, I try to, like, at least I can get outside and get some fresh air and feel like I'm clearing my head. And I
Yeah.
think that, like I said, we just don't take those moments enough. And I've had to be very diligent and very outspoken about that with my family too, because they're used to me always getting what they need, what they want. I'm making sure the
Mhm.
schedules are going, those things. And so me having to say that, I've had to explain to them why, because I'm not going to be any good to you if I don't,
Right?
and I think that that's so, so important. You talk also about reframing vulnerability. I'll say that word 3 times really fast. I love that you talk about being vulnerable in your books too. And I think that that's
Yes.
so important too, because it leaves such a significant transparency. And so, how can parents use this mindset to foster open communication with their children by bringing in, their own vulnerable moments?
Yeah. So vulnerability gives us a space to grow. It gives us a space to ask questions. It gives us a space to be curious and to play.
Yes.
Kids are sponges
Yeah.
and they really imitate what they see and
Oh,
what
yes,
they
they do.
hear. And especially when I work with like kids that are like slightly older, like I want to say around like 8, 9 years old, you start seeing more of the imitation
Oh, yeah.
because I hear them talking to me because there are certain things that adults say to me that really rub me the wrong way. And I really have to have like a calmness in me to not get
Right.
angry or not get frustrated because again because of what I do I get a lot of adults coming to me and I can hear their little kids talking to me and they're unaware that it's their
Yeah.
little girl or little boy inside or it's that part of them that's like wait she's doing what I've always wanted to do but for whatever reason they haven't done it yet kind of a thing. And so vulnerability by demonstrating it to our little ones, it does give them that space to grow. It's give them that space to develop and play. And that's where a lot of what we see when we see adults complain about being in like being at a stagnant state or being frustrated in their life and whatnot. There's always room to grow. There's always a choice for a change. And that vulnerability, having that space to say no or ask further questions or see like, okay, wait, what do you mean about that? What are you saying? Or like that curiosity, it keeps growing. The other piece of this too is children are in general, children are born with big imaginations. And
Yes.
around the age of, I've been told this by other people that work with kids too, around 8 or 9 is when we see that awareness and that peer pressure creep in, and we see them
Yes.
tighten
Yeah.
up. I don't want to look silly. I don't want to look weird. And when we
Yeah.
develop that vulnerability in ourselves, it gives them that courage to continue their imagination. And I am that kid and that adult who has an imagination like bigger than the universe times a zillion. And I do get, there are times I never shy away from it. I never hide it, but I have had times in my life where I've heard a parent kind of snicker at me or like make a rude comment. Like, for example, I was, one of the little girls in my building, she had lost a tooth. And I said, oh, I saw fairy dust the other night. I should have known it was you. I thought the tooth fairy was visiting that night. And, the little girl excited. She walks away. I walk away. I walk up the stairs and I heard the mother say, oh, fairy dust. And it made me
Yeah.
sad. It
Yeah.
made me sad. And my own mother ridiculed me for my imagination too. And she actually brought it up when I was an adult in a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a space in my healing where I actually had an out of the box moment where I felt sad for her.
Mm-hmm.
I felt sad that she couldn't recognize the amount of imagination that her daughter, meaning myself, has.
Yeah.
And it made me sad that she felt the need to make me look foolish as a grown woman in front of people. I was actually not embarrassed for me. I wasn't embarrassed. I was just sad for her. And
Right.
again, that's a lack of vulnerability. And
Yeah.
the more vulnerability we have, the more we're able to grow and the more we're also able to identify like lanes and boundaries and all these other things. So
Yeah.
it's really endless. It's really endless.
I think you give such a great perspective on how that can open up for you when you do exhibit being vulnerable. Like I never really thought of it that way. So I think you give such a great aspect to that, and giving people permission to be okay doing that too. I think sometimes we get very siloed into societal conditions, and I know I've struggled with that quite a bit, even with Drayson and his behaviors. Being on the spectrum, he has very pointed, select behaviors. And I've had to learn to just, for lack of better words, not give a shit what other people think. Sorry.
Yeah.
And to be okay with that, or to be able to have a sense of humor, or still to be playful with him, even though people might think we're crazy in the aisle of Target, acting the way that we're acting. But it's really tapping back into that inner child for me, I think, in a lot of ways with Drayson, that's made it really fun and exciting for me to see him grow and blossom. But it is easy because before I would have her, I'd be like, Drayson, come here. Drayson, come stand over here. Drayson, like I'd be worried about what everybody else thought. And it wasn't really until recently, after some of my own personal, you know, trials and tribulations, so to speak, that I've experienced over the last 6-7 months, that I just realized that I can't care about that. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to care. It doesn't matter, because the bigger picture is I want him to still be creative and to be open-minded and to have patience and to have confidence and know that it's okay if he makes a mistake or all of those things. But I wasn't walking the walk. So, and since we've been doing that, I've noticed like I've even been having a lot more fun with him, and he's been having a lot more fun too. And I think that that's a fantastic, beautiful, wonderful thing, you know?
Amazing.
Um,
Well, sorry.
oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead. Go right ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, because that's the other piece about where I feel like when we're able to have vulnerability, that can be so big, because especially when I talk to people about my books, like a lot of things come up where people say to me, "Oh, but are you writing books about autism? Are you focusing on autism?" And honestly, because I've been exposed to family members and
Mm-hmm.
exposed to it, it does make me, it is triggering and it is
Mm-hmm.
sad because,
Yeah.
first of all, when we say spectrum, it's a very big and broad thing.
Yes.
Everyone's different, everyone's unique. And when people do that, it's like you can't pigeonhole people. You can't
Right.
pigeonhole people. You can't. And also the needs that a special needs child or an autistic child are no different than the needs of a high functioning child.
Yeah.
And that's also where I
Absolutely.
get sad too. It's like we all have these needs. They just come in different colors and different shapes. And so I appreciate you sharing about your son. He sounds like, I know we talked about him before. He sounds like a wonderful, wonderful boy. And
Yeah.
the best gift we can give. I actually was like watching something on Graham Norton, and it was from a couple of years ago, but like I still cried. It was something about the rights of homosexuals. And,
Mm-hmm.
again, it just makes me sad, whether it's autism or sexual orientation, that people
Right.
can't be their true selves,
Yeah.
that they're not in a space where they can be respected and embraced just who they are. And
Yeah.
so that's really also where vulnerability comes in, is having that space to
Mm-hmm.
really get to know people and learn who they really are, like what's inside here. That's what's most important.
Yeah. And I think that that's something I've realized of most recently over the last few years, is that we are culturally here, at least here in the United States, we're very much the culture of masking our feelings, masking our reactions, masking, even what people think we should or shouldn't be doing. And I think that we've got to break away from that. And I do love, I would not trade Drayson's autism for the world, because he has shown me so much in being okay with just who we are, how we learn, how we grow. Like, he has been honestly one of my biggest teachers, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm glad that I had the, I guess, knowledge or the inspiration to really pay attention to that, because I know that that's not something that happens on the daily. It doesn't always happen on the daily, but I try, and I think that that's important for parents to really recognize that that's okay too. Like you said, like, we're not perfect. And what I love about your books is that they don't just apply to kids on the spectrum. They really do apply to everybody. These, they're the built-in social stories that you have created with these books are valuable for any parent to read with their child, neurotypical or not. I mean, even some of the stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so cute. Like, and then it inspired me. Like, it's so funny because I recently planted a garden. So when your book came, I was laughing because I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm on the right path. I'm supposed to be planting a garden, but reading that with Drayson, I've noticed now when he goes out and sees me watering the plants, he's like, what are you doing? And what plant is this? And what's growing? So we're finding these ways to engage. And it's because I started reading, we started reading about the garden. And he was like, and I'm like, well, it's not growing yet. And he's like, they will. Like, the patience aspect. It was like he was telling me to be patient because I was worried that I didn't plant the seeds correctly or something and that it wasn't growing, and now, like, little sprouts are coming up and he's excited and we're both excited. And it's been a very well-connected moment for us that I didn't even think about. I just wanted to be able to do something different, take time for myself and get outside. But what I didn't know was that it was going to be beneficial for him as well. So, and so your books have brought a lot of insight and realization for me as well. So I want to thank you for that, because I don't think you get to hear that often enough. So I think it's important
I'm
that
like,
you know them.
Tears are coming. I'm really touched. Thank you so seriously. It really,
That's awesome.
it's so beautiful because that's really what the series is about. It's about
Yeah.
those moments, those unconventional moments,
Yeah.
and like, I realize my nephew's a bit younger, but like that's really what it's about. Cause like my
Yeah.
nephew does, like, he's not a toucher, for example.
Yeah.
And like, so there's nothing like traveling 6 hours one way and
Yes.
not being able to hug him or something, or
Right.
going into a holiday where everyone's already overstimulated. And of course, everyone wants to play with him and whatnot. But by giving him his space, we do have his bond, because when I do stay with them or in the group, he always finds this way of finding me.
Yeah. He
And we
knows.
always
Yeah.
end up just the two of us in like a secluded area of the house where it's just us. And it's so cute because like my brother-in-law will pop his head in and like smile. I'm like, I appreciate you. And like, sometimes he brings me a glass of wine as payment, but I'm like, it's really not a job, it's a joy. But that's really what it's about, is like
Yeah.
learning how to connect. And now my niece, she's a toucher. She'll let me hold her. She'll cuddle into me and whatnot. And so again, every child communicates differently.
Yeah,
Like,
and
and
embracing those experiences for what they are is such a beautiful thing. Yeah. It's letting go of that
yeah,
expectation of what you think it should be. Yeah, absolutely.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I know before we wrap up the show today, so you have 11, is there 10 or 11 books for Bella? I can't remember.
So book 13 actually just
Oh,
came
God,
out. It actually
13. Oh, I
just
wasn't even
published it
close.
yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah. And book 15 will be
Exciting.
out by this fall.
Oh
Yeah.
my
And
gosh. That's so
yeah,
amazing.
it's really, yeah, really exciting. And we're actually manufacturing the stuffy, a
Oh,
Bella elephant. So hopefully, it depends on how the tariffs are going. We're
yes.
kind of waiting out the storm, but she will be coming ideally, if not by the end of this year, by sometime next year. Again, I'm just like waiting across my fingers. I'm like, it's a storm. I just need to hunker down. And that's
Yeah.
also where we were talking about having patience, like having a calm. It's like there are things that we just can't control.
Yep.
And this is just one of those things where it's like, okay, we're going to
Yep.
sit still. We're going to take advantage of the situation, like as it's happening for a reason. And
Yep. and go from
It's going to
there.
be okay.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Well, I will be sure to, I'm going to put, for those of you listening today, I will put everything in the show notes so that if you're interested in checking out Bella Elephant, which I highly recommend, these books are absolutely fantastic. And if you want to get in touch with Kristina, I'll make sure that all of her information is listed in the show notes so that you can get in touch with her. Kristina, thank you so much for being on the show today. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me, Nikki. It's so much fun talking to you as always.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely. Well, this concludes our episode for today. If you have questions, comments, or even a show topic that you would like to hear about, please feel free to send me an email at info@piecesformypuzzle.com. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram if you have not done so already, or feel free to check us out on YouTube as well. If you like what you're hearing, please spread the word to friends and family in your community. It's so important, and we want to continue to empower families as much as we can. And feel free to give us a good rating on your preferred podcast platform of choice. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, keep working on your puzzle, and remember, you don't have to have it all solved in a day. Take care.